Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for the week ending May 6th. This is May 8th, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and cat mothers and dog mothers and heck fathers. I won't say what I was going to say, which was a curse word. Anyway, happy holiday. I brought my mom some flowers today. She was very excited. Um, anyway, I myself am only a cat mother, but that counts. So the ES had a pretty interesting week last week. We came down and tagged the Tenkan-sen support I've been talking about for a few weeks now. In my last week's video, I mentioned that we might come down and find support there, and indeed we did. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see closer some details. So the Tenkan-sen was at 2036.25. We actually came down and traded below that. We traded all the way down to 2030.50. So wow, that's impressive. 6 points below that. That was on the spike down after we got the not so great payroll data, and then basically we found some buyers, came down, retested, but not all the made a higher low intraday, and then we basically continued to power up for the rest of the day, not without some stops and starts and pauses and teasing and bear barbecues and bull stress and etc. But we closed the day, significantly off the lows. When we put a doji type candle, very small body, long-legged doji, long leg on the bottom, slightly less long leg on the top there. But that is a potential reversal candle. But of course, we need to see confirmation of that with a higher high and a higher low. So that's what I'm looking for this week, whether or not we can confirm a change of trend back to the upside. If we don't, if we continue lower, since we are still in a downtrend, we do have that same support at 2036.25 or wherever the Tenkan-sen is at when the new candle opens, which should be maybe slightly higher, reflecting this bounce. If we do not hold the Tenkan-sen support, then we have the cloud down here. Do make note that the cloud is quite thin in this area. So if we do get down into this area, we won't have a lot of real good support until we get more into the end of May and the beginning of June. The cloud gets thicker. Another detail I want to look at on this chart is the Chikou, this red line here representing price action. Time shifted 26 weeks into the past. 26 periods, so 26 weeks since we're looking at weekly. We noticed that the Chikou closed inside the cloud. I was interested in seeing if the Chikou could actually get, or if current price could get enough of a bounce that we could close outside the cloud, and that was at the, let's see, the 2058.38 level is where the cloud was at. So we didn't quite make it back over the cloud. So we'll see what happens if we can get back over the cloud. Then that would be more bullish. We're also going to need to clear these candles here for the Chikou. As far as other details about this chart, we do have a basically flat and twisty, thin cloud coming up all the way into the fall. So that doesn't really look like the kind of cloud that necessarily supports a huge continued move to the upside. So when the cloud is thin and twisted like this, it usually represents a pretty small range. Of course, anything can happen, but these clouds are predicting some more sideways action in a relatively tight range. Let's move on to CL. Wow, I have, I'll just show you for a laugh. I had my old fibs out from back in the day, or my old crude levels on the monthly from back in 08, 09. Pretty interesting to look at this. This triangle was awesome. I thought it was very tradable at the time. This was really handy to trade. In fact, right around this time period, everybody was extremely bullish and thinking that crude was going much higher. And I had, noticed these, and I drew these trend lines from the weekly, not the monthly, which they look like they're kind of wacky. But anyway, this trend line, was so clear to me. But so I actually, nailed this short here for a while, I believe, and then I don't know, things just got pretty easy as we triangulated along, and then this time period was somewhat nasty and choppy to trade. This big short was easy, of course, but so anyway, let's go back to the weekly. I just happen to have those fibs on there, so let's hide them. All right. Looks a lot clearer here. On the weekly, we see that last week we had the Alberta tar sand oil fire, spreading to be wildfire. Don't get me started on the tar sands up there. I just think it's a bad idea to begin with. Very tragic that everything's on fire up there, but it did cause some sort of panic that caused crude to get bought up later in the week. So we did put in a bit of a hammer candle pattern after we did sell off after last week's uptrend and topping tail. So you'll note that we did not, if we look at the Chikou here, the Chikou was unable to make it over the Tenkan-sen here. And in fact, I was talking about a target. Some of you might have noticed I posted several charts in this arena. I was looking for a weekly target of 46.74, I believe, which is right. 46.75 I was looking for because that's where the weekly Tenkan-sen is. So it was the high that we put in was 46.15. That's not right. I guess so. So the week before, the high that we put in was 46.78. So it was actually the week before that I was looking for that target, so I was just only a few cents off. So then, so last week's candle put in an inside candle inside prior week's candle, and still the Tenkan-sen was unable to get above that level. So what I'm looking for this week is we have a pretty easily defined range. If we do get some price action to the upside, we have significant cloud resistance up here around 47.70, 47.68 to be exact. And then we have Tenkan-sen support. It's currently at 41.01, but probably it will be higher, representing the fact that we did not sell off. I expect it will be a little bit higher. So wherever the new Tenkan-sen opens up on crude, pardon me, that will be a support level. And then also this, of course, this Tenkan-sen is still at the same level. Will still be at the same, actually it won't be, it will be lower. So we have the 45.54 Tenkan-sen for next week's Chikou to be running into. So do keep an eye on that 45.54 level. I expect some sideways action. Maybe potentially a move down towards the Tenkan-sen, but we'll see. If things continue to be bullish, if the fire in Alberta gets worse, if OPEC does something or whatever, and we do make it into the cloud here, this is actually a very thin area right in this area, and that would be a very good area for price to break through the cloud. As we move further into the cloud becomes thicker, and if we end up trading down and following the contour of the cloud to the downside, then it's going to be harder and harder for price action to break through. As this, you can see this air. This cloud is much thicker. This is like a little, um, uh, sandbar you can walk across or something like that. All right, let's move on. Let's look at the NASDAQ. How about that? So I heard some kind of all sorts of crazy stuff about Apple. They seem to want to manipulate it in various directions. I heard something about some person who calls themselves the greatest trader in the world selling Apple. Whatever that means, the greatest trader in the world sold their Apple. Okay, who cares? Carl Icahn said he dumped his Apple. And then, other hedge fund people are saying it's a great time to buy the dip on Apple. I don't know. I actually bought one call on Friday. I bought a 94 weekly, I think it's a 94 weekly call for this week, just for fun. It was cheap thrills, lottery ticket kind of style. And the reason that I did that is we'll go over at the end of after I do the rest of the indexes, we'll take a look at the Apple chart. But so as far as the NASDAQ goes, we put in a doji candle last week holding the cloud. I pretty much expected that we would trade in a range between the Tenkan Sen at 4407.13 and the Kijun Sen down here at 4388, and that's pretty much what we did. We did test below the Kijun Sen and then bounced up. This is a potential reversal candle, but of course we need to see a higher high and a higher low. So we'll see what happens. We could continue sideways inside the cloud, or we could go higher or lower. So it'll be interesting to see what the weekly candle looks like at the end of the week. We see the Chikou over here is inside the cloud, and it is between the Kijun Sen and the Tenkan Sen. So it's going to find resistance at the Tenkan Sen if it can get over the cloud, and then it's going to find support at the Kijun Sen. So that's another reason to be looking at this general area of range. In fact, the Tenkan Sen over here is at 43, bear with me, 4385. Okay, 4385.25 is where the Tenkan Sen is over here. All right, let's move along. Let's look at the Dow. I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit slow today. I was doing a ton of other stuff unrelated to charts, and I haven't been looking at charts all weekend. So, all right, looking at the Dow, we see that we did a similar thing to the ES. We came down and pulled back towards the Tenkan Sen, but we didn't quite tag it. Tenkan Sen's at 17,450. We put in a low of 17,475. So we missed the low. We missed the Tenkan Sen by 25 points, but we still did put in a significant bounce. This is a potential reversal candle. It's almost a hammer candle, slightly more than the ES was, at least from the looking at it here. We do see that the Chikou closed inside the cloud here, so it's going to need to get over these candles. It's going to need to get back over into like around 17,870s area in order to get out of the woods and be free of restrictions from moving much higher. We do have a thin, flat cloud below here, so it's very important to make sure that we hold the Tenkan Sen 17,450 or wherever it tends to be when the new candle opens up. All right, let's look at the Russell. The Russell was interesting on Friday, sort of leading, I think, or I thought at the time. The Russell is bearish. It's still under the cloud. It wasn't able to get over the cloud, contrary to the other indexes. But it did come down and pull back and tested the Tenkan Sen, which is bull crossed over the Kijun Sen, although the bull cross is under the cloud, so less important. But it did come down, test slightly under the Tenkan Sen, and put in a nice bounce. So we'll see if we can continue to hold the Tenkan Sen support and put in a higher high and a higher low or not. If we don't, we should come down and test the Kijun Sen at 1072.10. If we do move higher, we're going to run into the cloud resistance right here at 1159.60. The Chikou is going to run into the Tenkan Sen here at 11, let's call it 1136.30. How about that? Exactly that. So keep an eye on those levels. On the Russell, let's look at some metals. How about that? Looking at gold, we had this obvious triangle here. I drew it, I draw my trend lines and oftentimes my fibs without including the wicks. A lot of people wouldn't like that, but you could always do something like that or like that. We're kind of like looking, we're still a triangle basically. So this very bullish candle was obviously an upside triangle break. And then last week's candle we put in a very a tall long-legged doji. So this is a potential reversal candle back potentially to the downside. So the potential for us to, let's hide the drawings, they look a little bit distracting. Clean. If we do move to the downside, we do have support at the Tenkan-sen at 1256 or wherever it reopens. It may reopen higher because this because of the fact that we're still in an uptrend, and we did put in a higher high here. If we do, or we could move, we could continue on the uptrend, negating the potential reversal candle here and put in a higher high and a higher low. So we'll see what happens. Coming up, we do have a slide down here in the cloud, which is not particularly bullish, even though price action is bullish overall. Just wanted to make sure that Chica was in the picture here. And then we have a flat cloud going into June, July, and August, and then we have another dip. So this cloud structure is not particularly representative of a immediate move higher. We'd want to see a more supportive cloud, and right now we have a pretty flat and lower cloud in the future. Let's look at some silver next. Key thing about silver here is that the Chicow came up and tested the top of the cloud here, which I posted several charts on during the week, and I hope you saw that if you're on Twitter and you trade silver. So we were unable to get above the cloud here, and we reversed lower. We did put in a higher high last week and a higher low, so we're technically still in an uptrend. This was a really fast move. It's uncommon to see such a strong breakout over the cloud without some kind of retracement back to the cloud, especially if the cloud is getting stair-stepping lower in the future. So I wouldn't be surprised, to see some flagging action and potentially a retest of the Tenkan-sen. The Tenkan-sen currently at 1642, but I would expect it to open higher, maybe 1675, something like that. I'm guessing, of course, completely. But I'm expecting perhaps potentially some sideways to lower action on silver this week. We also noticed that we got overbought on the weekly time frame and had to deal with that, which is another reason that we might have been selling. You can see the RSI tagged that upper 70 level here. And that, I don't know. I mean, RSI, I don't trade off RSI I don't actually use it as a trading technique, but it's pretty handy to note when we are overbought on longer time frames. It's usually stuff usually happens. Like when we got oversold here, we definitely got some bounces to the upside. So, all right, let's carry on. Look at some treasuries. Let's look at ZB. The Bund put in a significant bounce last week, and we see that ZB actually continued its move higher after coming down and putting in a potential reversal candle after bouncing off the Kijun-sen down here. So we did move higher and put in a higher high and a higher low, and we did put in a close above the Tenkan-sen, which is pretty bullish for ZB moving further. In fact, the cloud is more supportive for an up move in the future. We do have a bit of a dippy area here, and if we lose the Kijun Sen at 161.03, I wouldn't be surprised for us to come down and potentially make a whoosh. But unless we get under the cloud is very supportive for a move higher on the 30-year Treasury bond. Let's look at the 10-year. We see that we are basically flagging, bull flagging, perhaps sideways with the 10-year. We are in an uptrend still, although we did put in a significant topping tail last week. I'm thinking that this is kind of sort of pennant-esque looking price action on the 10-year. So if you are trading it next week, do keep an eye on the Tenkan-sen level here at 129.215. If we do get a move lower, I would expect a retest of that area. If we lose that area, we could come down and test the Kijun Sen at 129.050. There's no reason to think that we can't go higher. If we do try to go higher, there's obvious horizontal resistance here around 131. Okay, let's look at 6J. How about that? Let's look at the yen. The yen has been an invaluable chart to keep an eye on as far as determining risk, because basically the yen is the inverse of the Nikkei, and the Nikkei has been kind of driving the market lately as far as risk on. I'm really happy that Golden Week is over and we're going to have Japan back in the mix after having Japan had all of last week off. So it was slower when that happens. So the yen is still in a pretty strong uptrend, but it did put in a potential reversal doji type candle last week. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us see some selling on the yen and maybe come down and test the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is currently at 0091218. I would kind of expect it to be a bit higher, reflecting this price action to the upside, maybe up towards 92. But we'll see. Wherever it ends up when the new candle opens up, then we can expect that to offer support. If for some reason the yen crashes, if there's some kind of BOJ blah blah blah, we do note that the shape of the cloud really supports a sell-off. Has quite a trough here with a very thin cloud before a stair-stepping move higher. So just some stuff to keep in mind if you're looking at the yen. Let's look at the Nikkei too. The Nikkei put in a potential reversal candle last week. It's possible that we could get a move to the upside. The first area of resistance is the 16,600 level Tenkan-sen. Then the next area of resistance higher is where the Chikou is going to run into the cloud, which is around 17,095. And then, of course, the Kijun Sen above that, 17,438. All right. I feel like I'm forgetting a lot of stuff. Let's look at, since it was going nutty, let's look at the live cattle. Live cattle put in a confirmation of this potential reversal candle. It confirmed the reversal to the upside in a very bullish way, with a higher high and a higher low. If we continue this bullish move upwards, which I think is entirely likely, we do have this prior horizontal resistance area of 124.24, and then we have the Tenkan-sen above, which is flat, and flat Tenkan-sen's attract price at 127.90. So LE, the live cattle, still looking pretty bullish after putting in that new low 2 weeks ago. Let's look at cocoa. I have a friend who made a very nice short cocoa trade that I was uncertain about at the time because it had been holding daily support, but indeed it was a very nice short. You see that we reversed after putting these tweezer tops in and did not find support at the top of the cloud here and sold off. But we did kind of find support at the Kijun Sen here. Kijun Sen is at 30.80 and we closed at 30.78, so just 2 ticks underneath it. So it's possible that the Kijun Sen will hold as support, so do keep an eye on that 30.78, 30.80 level. If the Kijun-sen does not hold, then I would expect a test of the Tenkan-sen below at 30.41, and then the cloud top down at 30.34. Potential areas of support for cocoa. Let's look at coffee. I haven't looked at coffee much lately because it's just doing boring chop. It looked like it was, we got this really bullish move for coffee, and then we got rejection back out of the cloud. Then we got some bear flagging action under the cloud, and last week we put in a hammer type candle, which could be a potential reversal candle to the upside. But we're going to need to confirm that with a higher high and a higher low. And if we do get a move to the upside, we're going to run into cloud resistance at approximately like 126.16. And all right, I said I would look at Apple, and I'm gonna. So Apple put in a potential reversal candle after this bearish move after earnings missed last week. So this is a doji that could want to see a reversal to the upside. If we want to get bullish on Apple, we're going to need to see a higher high and a higher low. We're going to need to see the recent this week's low hold, which was at 91.85. Otherwise, we're bearish in always Ichimoku for Apple on the weekly time frame. Let's take a look at the monthly while we happen to be here on Apple. See that Apple's been in a very nice uptrend on the monthly with some pullbacks, obviously, but is still fully bullish on the monthly time frame. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some similar action to, if we look at the pattern of this on the monthly and look at the pattern of this, I wouldn't be surprised to see some similar action, some potentially up to sideways action here, and maybe a move higher. That's just sort of what I wouldn't be surprised to see. The RSI is, doing nothing too exciting. If we, if the greatest trader in the world is right, and we should all be dumping Apple, because after all, who owns Apple products these days? Pretty much nobody, and they have like almost no cash on their books. I'm actually, of course, being very sarcastic. And I will fully disclose that I used to be an Apple consultant for many years. So that doesn't mean I'm super thrilled about the company, but just putting out the facts there. So if we do move lower on Apple, we can come quite a bit lower, like down to the 70s. Maybe we could test this area around 80. If that happens, if we see, a $12 move to the downside on Apple, then I would expect the markets overall to move significantly lower, and it's not looking like they're going to do that. All right. I did want to also actually look at the dollar real quick via the lovely DX. So last week the dollar, after being on a mission downwards, oops, we're in the monthly, sorry. After mission downwards 2 weeks ago, we saw the dollar put in a nice hammer candle, bounce off the lows, but we did find resistance exactly at the cloud. So if in order for the dollar to reverse trend to the upside, it's going to need to break into the cloud, and if it does, it's going to face the Tenkan-sen inside the cloud. Currently, the Tenkan-sen is at 95.19, so we'll see where that is when the new candle opens up. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I still feel like I'm missing something important. Let's look at nat gas. So I know some natty people that might want to see nat gas. I just find the chart so boring. But we're still bearish under the cloud, chopping around here. We did confirm this candle was a potential reversal candle to the downside, and we did put in confirmation of that. Or actually, this is an inside candle, so we didn't confirm the reversal to the downside. We're still technically in an uptrend. we need to put in a lower high and a lower low in order to put in a change of trend to the upside, to the downside. I would keep an eye on the 2.053 Kijun Sen if I'm trying to be bullish. I would want that to hold as support, and then we do have the cloud as resistance to the upside. Next week it's going to be all the way up at about 2417. That's where cloud resistance is going to be next week. All right, now I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, or if you're interested in learning how to trade futures or anything really, Forex trades really nicely with Ichimoku. A lot of people use Ichimoku to trade Forex. If you're interested in learning how to trade with Ichimoku, it is a lot easier than you might expect, and you can learn relatively quickly. I do teach that in a chat room. You can see more information about that at CloudChartist.com. And you can always hit me up on Twitter if you have questions at CloudChartist, or send me an email, cloudchartist@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and have a good night and a very good trading week.